Before we begin, a big thank you to Hoyoverse for sponsoring this video and giving me access to their game. Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. Back in September, Hoyoverse reached out and asked me to give my thoughts on their upcoming game, Zenless Zone Zero, while promising to give me access to their game once it was closer to release. Well, they followed through on their original promise, and in typical Backlogs style, when they asked if I would kindly review it, I told them I would if, and only if, I get to challenge run it while doing so. And they agreed. The fools! So today, while we look at everything Zenless Zone Zero has to offer, we're gonna simultaneously find out. Can you beat Zenless Zone Zero with only one character? For those of you wondering what I mean, all you need to know is that Zenless Zone Zero has some pretty hectic dungeons, and expects you to play with a party of 3 characters at all times, for type coverage and support. But come on, this is me we're talking about here. I've never been much of a team player, and besides, it's not like it's gonna be that difficult. We might be in for a wild ride, but maybe we should start at the beginning. So what exactly is Triple Z? Well, it's kinda hard to describe. Ooh, shut up, it's the new Starlight Nights promo. So, not gonna lie, I might have sat on this title screen for several minutes, just trying to understand what my eyes were taking in. Fun fact, this title screen has over 5 minutes of television commercials before it loops. You can literally spend the first 5 minutes of your time in Triple Z watching TV. And I did. For science! But while I do that, let's get you all caught up on the lore so you know what the heck is going on. Here's the quick notes. Alternate dimensions called hollows have been popping up across the world, swallowing entire cities and landmasses. Anyone caught inside a hollow is exposed to its effects. Spend too long in a hollow, and you'll become corrupted and turn into a monster. The different humanoid species of this world have all retreated to the last bastion city available, New Eridu. But hollows are closing in on the city itself, with smaller hollows popping up occasionally and devouring entire streets. The only way to remove a hollow is to kill enough of the monsters inside, or kill the biggest, baddest monster in there. Needless to say, navigating the hollows has become a lucrative business opportunity for anyone who is resistant to the effects. But navigating the hollows is extremely difficult, which brings us to our main characters. Meet Belle and Wise, a brother-sister pair who act as proxies. Think of them as guides for anyone entering the hollow. We get to choose which character we'd like to use as our avatar, an easy choice. And then it's time to play us some Zenless Zone Zero. Wait, what? Where are we? And who are these goofballs? Wow, that's some beautiful animation. If the rest of the game is this well animated, we're in for a visually good time. And now we're doing comic book style storytelling. Okay, I can dig it. So yeah, looks like these 3, the Cunning Hares, stole a strongbox from another gang. A strongbox that even the local police force want. They're a little over-enthusiastic. In typical anime style, the Cunning Hares are unharmed by explosions, but do get blasted out of the window and into a hollow that's bubbling up below the building. Out of the frying pan, into the fire. Good God. Please tell me the in-game visuals are just as beautiful as the cutscenes. Yep. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm used to playing older games, but I have 0 complaints about this art style. Alright, let's see what we got going on here. Got some dashes, some light attacks, heavy attack options, and eventually an ultimate attack. And yes, it all feels just as good as it looks. The controls are extremely tight, and for those of us that prefer a controller, such as myself, I can confirm that the controls feel just as tight and responsive as the mouse and keyboard. You'll love to see it. Oh hey, baddies. Time to see how all that beautiful animation works in action. Looks like we can light attack enemies as much as we want, which builds up our energy meter, which you can then use with a heavy attack to deal extra damage. You can still use your heavy attack without having a full energy bar, it just doesn't have the same special effects. I make my way through the rest of the enemies, get a super cool finish scene, and there are in-game challenges. Yes please. Oh hey, a new character. It's Billy Kid. Half man, half robot, all American. Jesus wept, somebody stop me! Now, unfortunately, the game is still teaching me the ropes, so I can't abide by my challenge rules just yet. But since we're forced to use a team, might as well enjoy the benefits. Wow, okay, kind of upset I won't get to use that in the future. But yeah, depending on which characters you have in your roster, you can do character swaps mid-combat, resulting in some crazy combos. Very cool stuff. And so we reach the first boss of the game. Whoa, easy there, fella. I'm not done talking yet. New mechanic time. If you change teammates at just the right moment, you get a parry, dodging any incoming damage and doing a good amount of damage in the process. Combine that with unlimited bullets, and that's an easy first boss down.
He's recovered? Is his ether activity still increasing?
Keep up the attack.
Nah, we don't have the firepower to fight for long. Let's bounce.
Can I just say, the English voice actors are doing a great job. No weird inflections or anything like that. It all sounds very natural. In any case, Nicole, leader of the Cunning Hares, apparently knows our main character and bursts into our base, asking for some help to get her team and the lockbox out of the hollow. I chit-chat with Nicole a bit about the job, and it turns out that every line of dialogue has voice lines, and even has several options to choose from, which is nice. And once we've done that, we can pick our mission. Unfortunately, it looks like some story missions are going to require me to use specific characters. But later on, we can repeat the same missions with whichever character we want. So we get the best of both worlds. Huh. So it looks like the little rabbit is called a Bang Boo, and it's how we as a proxy can interact with our team. Lore-wise, anyway. Just think of him as a mobile camera. Oh, good, he's a Firebomb Academy member. I can rest easy. Oh yeah, that's the thing I forgot to mention. The landscape in the Hollows is constantly changing. So unless you've got a proxy on the outside who can lead you out, it's super hard to find an exit. Hence why there's so many monsters inside. But not to fear, I am here.
You got us out of there in the nick of time. As expected from Phaethon, reliable as always.
A few more compliments like that and I might just give you a discount. Really?
I think the proxy was just trying to be polite, Andy.
Okay, hold up. Why is this game actually funny? In any case, time to show off the second piece of Triple Z, the Hollow Exploration. Rather than having you run around randomly generated maps, the game instead relies on this maze-like navigation mode. Every space you travel has different effects. Some spaces reveal more spaces, which in turn might reveal treasure and resources, while other spaces are combat squares, which, upon activating, result in the third-person combat mode that we're familiar with. The Hollow Maze portions may not be visually exciting, but it does give Triple Z a lot of breathing space to try new things, like a super ethereal hunting me down. That's cool, no pressure. Each maze also has some side objectives, so if you can complete a maze effectively, you'll get boatloads of resources when you finish the mission. I get to the end of the maze, engage with the final boss while more and more smaller minions spawn in, and finish it off with relative ease. And just like that, the first official level's been cleared. While we bask in the glow of that beautiful S rank I just got, can we just take a second to talk about the music? This game has some real bops. It's a pleasant combo of funk and pop, and while I don't want to spend too much time showing it off in the video, just know that every area has similarly great beats in the background. The music in this game fits it beautifully, so big props there.
That was fast, Nicole. Did you run a red light again? No, we just passed a normal green light, R255 in the RGB scale.
Stop being funny, this is a serious challenge run! Skipping ahead quite a bit, we now have access to the world at large. I created an Internet account, which is basically the proxy version of Reddit, where you can read what's going on in the city and also take commissions. And it's weirdly fleshed out. Like, look at this. These aren't all jobs. Most of these are just posts from people around the city. All things considered, this method of delivering lore makes a lot of sense. It's not abrasive, fits the narrative of the game being set in modern times, and lets the game drop lore bits a few pieces at a time for anyone who wants to dig in. But you didn't come here for lore, you came here for a challenge run / review combo, which means it's time to explore the third portion of the game, the city itself. There's actually quite a lot to do in the city. We can talk to our combat characters and build up a relationship with them, stare at pandas drinking coffee, feel the mental anguish of real life in video game format, borrow a newspaper from a dog, and pick up a few side missions from the locals. And it's at this point that the challenge run can officially begin. Time to pick who's going to be our solo player. Looks like we can use some of the resources we found in the last mission to upgrade our characters. Doing so would increase their health, damage, and defense, so that's worth noting. And we can also look at each character's style of attack as well. We can also look at all the special passive bonuses that each character can unlock, which will definitely come in handy for the challenge, and also look over the finer details of what each character's light, heavy, and ultimate attacks are doing to enemies. At this point, we've only got 3 characters to choose from. Billy is obviously the ranged attacker, Nicole is a ranged and melee crowd control class with a focus on applying this game's version of magic damage, and Anby is the tank, using electricity and slashing damage with her sword. Considering this is our first solo dive, I decided to go with Anby, since I'm familiar with her moveset and, tank. And right from the word go, we have a problem. No more switch parries for me, which means no more big fancy damage. However, we do have dodge parries. Dodge at the right time, and you can follow up with a big damage attack. Not as effective as the switch parries, but much better than just jamming on the attack button. I hack and slash my way through the dungeon, beat the maze, which now has me pushing blocks around to manipulate doors, and do my best to clear the final combat of the dungeon, which is full of difficult enemies. And it's here that I found my first problem with the game. There's no lock-on, which isn't a problem when there's only one enemy, but becomes a bit of an issue when there's several enemies attacking me from different directions. In the game's defense, there are little arrows on the screen indicating where threats are coming from, and they glow and give a sound cue when there's incoming damage. But it's still a bit difficult to keep everything focused. Not the end of the world, but something I'll need to get used to for sure. And with only 67 health remaining, I demolished the last boss. Not even close. At least we know your score isn't determined by your health now. Well, that was almost a disaster. Let's try Billy for the next mission. And maybe we boost his stats as well? Yeah, that. Let's do that. Huh. The mazes have locked doors now. They're opened by inserting enough coins, which you can only find throughout that particular maze. No speedrunning in the halls, I guess. As far as combat goes, Billy was definitely the right choice. I can stay away from enemies until I'm more familiar with their attacks, and his dodge parry does a lot of damage. Combine that with his strong attack, and enemies are dying much faster now. Follow that up with his ultimate move, and clearing missions just got a whole lot faster. That feels good. This is probably some of the best combat I've felt in a game in a long time. Dodging feels rewarding, but not overly easy, and the animations are flashy without being overly distracting. Combine that with the bumping music and the fun little character callouts, and I'm probably having some of the most fun with the game I've had in months, which is not something I thought I'd be saying about this game. But now we need to talk about the portion of the game that had me worried when we talked about Triple Z back in September, the gacha mechanics. In order to unlock your character's passive abilities that we briefly talked about earlier, you'll have to use resources you collect from finishing missions to spin the wheel. The game is forthcoming about how many spins it'll take to get a guaranteed high rank prize, aka the pity pool, and details what your odds of winning on any other given pool are if you click on the detail button below. So at least they're not hiding that information. Considering we have to test everything out, I did a few polls, and got pretty lucky. A pretty useful Bang Boo, a few W engines, which are basically an equipable item that gives whatever character it's attached to a passive boost, and 2 Billies. Obviously I already have Billy, but that just means I can now use these tokens to unlock 2 of his passives. The first one increases how quickly his energy generates, and the second one increases the damage his dodge counters do by 20%, and makes more of his attacks count as a dodge counter. That's pretty huge. A few more pulls reveal the W engine that makes it so that the further away from an enemy I am, the more damage I do, up to 15%. So yeah, Billy just increased his damage by 35%. Naturally, you can upgrade every single equipable you find, so the ranged engine we just found is getting boosted to level 10. And if I ever find any duplicates of it, I can actually combine them into the one I have, giving it even larger bonuses. So duplicates are actually preferred, if you've got an engine you like. I do another story mission, where I'm forced to play with the entire Cunning Hair team, and we get to see Nicole's crowd control in action. That works pretty well, actually. Unlike the last mission, this hollow has several floors, and every step causes what the game calls pressure, which when you hit 100, causes negative debuffs that last for the entire dungeon, making how you navigate the dungeon that much more important. I make it to the final boss, the ethereal we ran away from last time, and get to unleash a full team combo on it. Well, won't be seeing that kind of damage again anytime soon. I also got to try out Nicole's ultimate, which literally unleashes a black hole at her enemies. Just normal anime things, nothing to see here. And there you go, mission complete. Something worth noting, when you play the story missions, the game actually gives you a specific loadout. My Billy is level 10 and has all sorts of goodies, but when I did the story mission, Billy was only level 8 and had none of the custom fun stuff I unlocked. And the way I see it, this is both a good and bad thing. The positives are pretty obvious. You don't need to worry about leveling up every character, you don't need to worry about giving every character the best equipment, and later in the game, you don't need to worry about unlocking a character to try them out, as later story missions will let you play as new characters for free. The negative is also pretty self-explanatory. Any time spent making your favorite character super overpowered won't actually help you when doing story missions, which means it doesn't matter how many times you've pulled the slot machine, everyone is on the same playing field when completing the story. Wait a minute, that's just another positive. So yeah, for the purpose of anyone playing the game normally, no pulls needed. Just use what the game gives you, and you can explore the story mode just as easily as everyone else. As for my challenge though, I need all the help I can get. Bear!
How can I help?
Oh, don't worry, I'll tell you. First off, his name is Ben Bigger. All of my yes. Second off, he does physical and fire damage. Even more of my yes. And lastly, his heavy attack is a parry, which, if used right before an enemy attack hits, immediately counters the enemy with massive damage. How much damage? Oh, just 250% of his defense. You know, nothing crazy. I also unlocked a demon child.
Is it work time? Is food included?
God, I want to choose you on that voice line alone. Some guy with a drill and a support lady. Good lord, you need support more than anyone else. Doesn't your back hurt? Oh, she throws grenades. Welp, with all these new characters available, I do a couple more side missions to see how viable they are for the purposes of the run. Not only are the missions changing it up a bit, where I'm now playing King of the Hill, but you can really tell that each character is completely different from the others. Grace is much more elusive and focused on crowd control than Billy, and deals an electric damage more than anything else. Meanwhile, Ben is all about big damage, stun-locking enemies, and getting those perfect parries off to do even bigger damage. Combine that with his ultimate, and yeah, we have a winner. The mazes themselves are actually incredibly varied now too. This one is a CAPTCHA test of all things, which I absolutely did not cheat on by rewatching my recorded footage, while this one here has me searching for lost citizens on a multiple floor maze. I was a bit worried about how simple the screen navigation portion of the game was at first glance, but now I can see why they did it. It really lets them try all sorts of minigame ideas without pushing players outside of their comfort zone every time a new mechanic is introduced. There's also a VR machine in the game, which, as expected, lets you create custom combat encounters to test out characters and builds. The VR machine does give you rewards though, some of which you can use to upgrade a character's basic attacks, so we'll definitely be revisiting this later. Oh, I got some more engines for Ben too. These ones are the opposite of what I put on Billy, where the closer I am to the enemies, the more damage I do. And because I've got multiple copies, I can combine them into one super engine, which means that 15% bonus is now 27. God dang. I also upgraded Ben to level 20, because despite only having about half of the characters unlocked at this point, I can tell that Ben is our guy. Oh, okay, new maze mechanic. The rules for this one is I have to make a path, but I can't loop back on myself. I only need to collect the injured citizens, but if you're careful, you can collect all the loot too. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Too easy. Come on, Triple Z, get on my level. Okay, I'm lying. Each of these puzzles took me a few minutes of staring and tracing my finger across the screen to figure out. Fun puzzles though. As for the combat sections throughout, they're basically just a formality at this point. Ben's parry ability, combined with the engine that I've got on him, makes fighting enemies trivial. And this was before I unlocked his special passive. Now his parries do 250% of his defense, which, being a massive bear, is pretty dang high. Oh look, I leveled him up enough that we've unlocked another passive. What's this one do? Yeah, no, I think we just win the game now. Which means it's time we start going against the biggest baddies we can. Time for an infamous ethereal. Unfortunately, I have to fight it in story mode first, so it's a full team fight. But it's still pretty crazy. I'll let the footage speak for itself.
Don't move!
Let's go. Be gone. Now's our chance.
Let's clear him out!
Easy game for babies. Oh, you would have a second phase. Ooh, goddamn, all right. Oh, come on, who gave you a Madeir laser? All right, you asked for it. Time for my ultimate attack. Cutscenes. With the power of an explosive train car, multiple bullets, and an electric sword in the middle of a lightning storm, victory is mine! Nailed it. Considering how hard that was for 3 characters, we better level up Ben a bit more. I set up the VR system so that the rewards I get from beating it give me items that'll help upgrade Ben's regular attacks, beat the simulation with extreme ease, then take my souped up Ben to the newest destination I've unlocked, Hollow Zero. Wake up, Ben. This one might actually be tough. This hollow is supposed to be the most difficult hollow to clear, not only because of the wide variety of difficult enemies, but also because it's extremely long, and each step causes pressure, which means lots and lots of debuffs before you reach the boss at the end. Oh, that's fun! And would you look who it is? No trainer teammates to save me this time, only skill alone. Oh, and a massively tuned up parry ability. Oh damn, that was the first phase. Well, maybe phase 2 will be harder. Or I've stun locked him to the point where he can't get up anymore. I think I broke the game. Oops. Alright, well, what if we tried to beat the hardest level in the game with a completely unupgraded character? Yeah, why not? Might as well prove that I'm the best of the best. Oh god, that's so little damage. Who let me do this? Well, I'm glad to see he gets to keep his damage. Oh god, wait, that wasn't even a critical hit. Please die, please die, please die, please die, please die. No, not you, Corin. Okay, first and last death of the run. Mulligan? Mulligan. Mulligan! So yeah, this was a terrible idea. But after an entire hour of dying on repeat, I've got it. Behold, the ultimate strategy. Simply charge in like a madman, perfect dodge the attacks as they come in, then just go full pizza cutter mode on the boss until he attacks again. Rinse and repeat. The first phase is easy enough. His attacks aren't too wild, and it doesn't take too much effort to break his poise so that I could dish out massive damage. But phase 2 is what I like to call a real bad time. Opportunities to safely counterattack are few and far between, and it's usually a better idea to just stay out of range of his wompo combos. That way, when there is an opening, you can take it without worrying about getting smacked into next week. Oh, but don't worry, the fun doesn't stop there. Turns out, he has a second phase in his second phase. I guess we kinda skipped past that part when we were playing as Ben. But, after roughly 10 minutes of sprinting around the arena, taking small chunks out of the boss while screaming, it's over. Hollow Zero, beaten with a completely unupgraded character. Why did I do this? I mean, yeah, it's probably a world first, but alright, I think I've seen enough. Needless to say, there's a lot more of this game to cover, but unfortunately, we've got other challenge runs to complete for December, so let's wrap this up. Zenless Zone Zero is a good game. All of its modes, whether it's the combat, the city exploration, or the maze games, have their own twist of fun to them. And the fact that you bounce between each mode at regular intervals gives the game peaks and valleys that are much needed. Getting tired of the in-your-face combat? Go to the local arcade and play some games there. There's 2 to choose from at the time of recording, and they're both a nice change of pace. And they even have achievements that give you rewards for doing them. Not relaxing enough? What about video store management? That's right, you can literally run a video store, choosing which films are on display and which employee is working the front desk that day. And yes, there are rewards for doing that as well. And when you're ready to use all those rewards you got from relaxing, you can dive right back into the Hollows, storyline, or VR machine. I've said it at least once, and I'll say it again. The maze mechanics are extremely varied. It feels like every other dungeon I've entered has introduced a new mechanic, and they're wildly different. I mean, just look at this. Here I'm being chased by mortars, Bomberman style, and here I'm trying to lead a conga line of survivors out of a dungeon without getting us all hit by a train. Ah, shit. Each of the 3 portions on their own would make a decent game. But the fact that they blended them all together doesn't water them down. It elevates them. The weariness you'd normally feel after doing 50 unique puzzles isn't there, because sprinkled throughout them, you're dicing your way through hordes of baddies with flashy combos and fun animations. It's really clever, and I'm honestly impressed. And I know I've already complimented the animations enough, but seriously, the animation team put their heart and soul into this game, and it shows. I don't think I saw a single animation that felt off, or even saw any graphical glitching at all during the 10+ hours that I played the game. Polished is not a word I've been able to say about many games that have come out lately, but this one deserves it. I'd also like to congratulate the game for making so many awesome characters. I don't know how they did it, but they all feel unique, and unlocking a character is almost always a happy surprise. A summoner maid? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it's not like she can be better than Ben, but we might as well try. Now, at this point, you may have noticed something weird about this video. Lemon, what happened to the story? Did you forget? Why, no, dear viewer. No, I did not. What I've actually done is given you a gift, and avoided spoiling the story as best I can. Because believe it or not, this game's story didn't invoke the skip mentality I usually have with games these days. I sat there, listening to the voice actors complete their dialogue lines, reading through lore documents, and carefully picking dialogue choices like I was supposed to. Because this game's story is actually good. And, judging by the fact that the game forces you to use hard-coded characters when you progress through the story, tells me that they know this, and want even those of us who are hated by RNGesus to be able to enjoy it. Which brings us to the one negative thing I have to say about the game, the RNG focus. Optimizing your character involves a lot of floating parts, and each of those parts is generally controlled by the RNG machine. You can only use what you're given, and the RNG gods are not always kind. For what it's worth, the game does offer multiple ways to trade in one resource for another. Which means that if you've got a guaranteed way to generate one resource, like the VR machine or dungeon missions, you can use those to work towards whatever drop you actually want. Or you can spend real-life money to get more chances at the lotto machines, because this game is free to play after all. Ooh. Yes, I know. But here's the thing. Remember how I said I played for 10 hours? Guess how many times I was asked to use real-life money? Did you guess 0? Because the answer was 0. In fact, because the game was so generous with its resources, and because you can just trade resources you're not using for the ones you want, I actually forgot that buying resources was even an option until I was writing the script. Now, in full clarity, the game hasn't released at the time of recording, so there's no telling what kind of monetization strategies they'll use in the final version, and the store wasn't operational during my playtest, which has me a bit worried. But if they keep the balancing of the game the way it is now, I can safely say that you can play for hours upon hours, and, just have fun. Just do the missions, actively use any free resources the game gives you, and enjoy yourself. It's not an overly difficult game. Hopefully my little challenge run has proven that. So even if you aren't getting quote-unquote S-rank characters, you can still easily push through the game and have a good time. In fact, I could have been doing even more damage with Ben if I had just taken my time and selected a proper engine for him. Turns out I could have picked an engine that made his parries do 800% more damage. So yeah, that's a bit upsetting. Now, one choke point I can see being a problem for the free-to-play crowd is the energy system. In order to do missions, you need to spend energy, and there are two ways to get it naturally in-game. The first is to buy coffee, which is super cheap and actually gives a buff on top, but you can only drink 1 cup in a 24-hour period. You can't tell me what to do! Alternatively, you can go touch grass for a bit and wait for your energy to naturally refill. It refills at 1 energy every 6 minutes, or roughly 18 hours to go from empty to full, which is a shame. Because again, this game is actually really fun, and to have a self-imposed playtime limit is kind of a bummer. As expected, you'll probably be able to buy more energy, but you can also trade in an in-game resource for energy, so I'm still hopeful. Also, it's worth noting that throughout my playtime, I ran out of energy once? Yeah, once. Now, am I expecting later game missions to take more energy to do? Yes. And does that mean you'll probably have to put down some money to make meaningful progress if you're not patient? Also yes. But if you are patient, you do get daily rewards for playing the game. So this could easily become a game that you just play for an hour or two each game to unwind for a bit. Because like I've been saying over and over again, it really is a fun game, and is worth throwing a few bucks at if you're having a really good time. Just remember to pace yourself, and always vote with your wallet. So, there you have it. Zenless Zone Zero. It's free to play, coming out sometime next year on PC, console, and mobile, and is some of the most fun I've had playing a game in a long time. As always, I highly recommend you check out other content creators' coverage of the game as well, to give yourself a well-rounded opinion before moving forward in any capacity. And if it seems like the kind of game you can get behind after all of that, you can follow my link below to pre-register for the game. That way you're notified of any news about Zenless Zone Zero as soon as it comes out. A big thank you again to Hoyoverse for sponsoring this video and for letting me playtest their game, and thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.